Hi everyone, and welcome to The Sleepy Scientist. I'm really happy you're here. Tonight, we're going to go on a calm and quiet trip to learn something amazing. So get comfy, take a deep breath, and let's enjoy this peaceful science story together. Before we start, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? If you like relaxing science videos, don't forget to tap the like button. Now let's begin. Far out where the water deepens beyond light's reach, where the sky is only a distant idea, something ancient moves in silence. It is not hunting. It is not fleeing. It is singing. Beneath miles of liquid weight, in a world where pressure folds the bones of lesser creatures, the whale begins a song. Long, slow notes drift like underwater dreams, not in words but in pulses, low frequencies that move not just through water, but through time itself. These aren't cries. These are stories. And every time a whale sings, the ocean listens. But to understand this secret that mammals, air breathers, land dwellers, descendants of forests, would return to the sea and learn to sing there, you must go back. Back before the ocean held songs, back when land was a new place, still uncertain under the feet of creatures that had only just begun to breathe air. Millions of years ago, there were no whales. There were only creatures that resembled wolves or deer, stepping cautiously through mud and reeds. But something called them back to the water. Maybe it was food, maybe safety, maybe a pull more mysterious, an echo of where all life began. And so, over generations beyond counting, these mammals waded in. They swam, they adapted, their limbs stretched into flippers, their noses slid upward to form blowholes. Their bodies rounded, streamlined like teardrops, and slowly the sea reshaped them, not just their bodies, but their instincts, their senses, their language. As they gave up the land, they gained something else, the ability to make sound carry through liquid silence. Sound in water behaves differently. It doesn't flutter and fade like in air. It rolls, it presses, it travels for miles. And so, in the dark places where vision is useless and touch too slow, sound became survival. A whisper through the currents, a moan across the trenches, a song that could stretch across entire oceans, and so whales began to hum, to groan, to chirp, to click. They developed dialects, patterns, rhythms, each species with its own voice, each pod with its own accent. But it's more than communication. Scientists have puzzled for years over why whales sing so beautifully, so lyrically when a simple click or bark might do. Some think it's about mating, others think it's a way to navigate. But when you listen closely, it doesn't sound like function. It sounds like art. The kind of art that doesn't need an audience, that rises from a deep urge simply to be felt. The kind that doesn't care who hears, only that the ocean holds it. Imagine floating in that darkness, weightless but aware. The pressure presses inward, but the song carries outward. It expands, it fills, it caresses. A blue whale's call can travel thousands of miles. A humpback's melody can last for hours. These songs shift every season, change with the years. Like jazz under the waves, they improvise, adapt, evolve. And yet somewhere within each note there is memory. A pattern passed down not in words but in feeling. A culture without writing. A library without shelves. And here lies the mystery. Whales are not born knowing how to sing. They learn. Young whales imitate the adults. They practice, they adjust their pitch, they refine their timing, and like birds learning to chirp or human infants babbling syllables, the whales shape sound into something more than noise. They create continuity, identity, connection. They remember songs their ancestors once sang and add new verses of their own. The ocean, it seems, didn't just accept mammals back, it taught them. It became their school, their cathedral, their stage, and unlike the short, clipped alarms of land animals, whale songs stretch out, relaxed and slow and unhurried, as if time itself moves differently underwater, as if the sea is patient with its poets. We once thought ourselves the only creatures capable of music, of song with structure, but we were wrong. Under the waves, where no light reaches and breath is borrowed, mammals sing with more grace than we ever imagined. They sing of distance, of longing, of presence. Some notes are lonely, some playful, some mournful, some triumphant. If you could translate them, you might hear stories of migrations, of losses, of reunions, of hunger, of joy. You might even hear something of yourself. Because we are not as distant from them as we think. We share a mother in the sea. Every embryo, no matter the species, begins in fluid, floating. Every lung remembers water. Every heartbeat echoes the pulse of waves. And somewhere deep in our ancestral code is the memory of returning, of trading footsteps for fin strokes, of finding voice not in air but in vibration. This is why we're drawn to their songs, why recordings of whales soothe us, why their moans quiet restless minds. Because they speak to the part of us that remembers being surrounded by warmth and motion and sound, the part that never learned to forget. And so the ocean keeps teaching, the whales keep singing, and we, lucky enough to listen, drift somewhere between awe and understanding. Let's drift deeper now into the heart of this underwater symphony. If the first whispers of whale song awaken our wonder, then their complexity awakens our awe. Imagine being surrounded not by silence but by layered sound. Notes stacked like clouds, rhythms rippling like waves, harmonies shifting as if the ocean itself were breathing in song. The whale's voice, carried through salt and pressure, becomes a form of touch, a connection so vast it dissolves distance. In this realm, sound is more than sound. It is language. It is map. It is memory. Humpback whales, in particular, are the poets of the sea. Their songs can stretch for hours, looping through themes, repeating motifs, varying phrases like verses in a hymn. And every year, their songs evolve. New patterns emerge. Old ones fade. It's not random. It's not instinct alone. It's culture. Passed between individuals, imitated, embellished, remembered. One whale changes a single note and that variation spreads across oceans. Soon whales 1,000 miles away are singing the new version. No written record, no teacher, just listening, just learning. Scientists once recorded a humpback population in the South Pacific adopting an entirely new song in less than 2 years. The original song vanished. The new one took root. It was as if a whole nation had suddenly changed its anthem, not by force, not by command, but by consensus, by shared curiosity. And what drives this evolution? No one knows for sure. Is it aesthetic? Is it social? Is it boredom, or beauty, or both? The ocean offers no answers, only echoes. But whatever the reason, it reminds us, these animals are not just surviving, they are creating. And creation requires more than instinct. It requires a mind attuned to patterns, a memory that spans not minutes but months. Some scientists believe whales possess long-term musical memory, able to remember complex song sequences across seasons, even years. Their brains, large and folded, hold maps of sound that rival our own capacities for speech. In fact, a part of their brain called the paralimbic lobe, associated with emotion and social behaviour, is proportionally larger in whales than in any land mammal, including us. This may explain their deep social bonds, their cooperative behaviour, their mourning of dead companions, their tender protection of caves, their curiosity toward humans. Whales live in emotional currents just as they live in water. They are not isolated. They are entangled by sound, by memory, by feeling. And these entanglements begin early. A newborn calf, still wrinkled from the womb, nestles beside its mother, feeling the gentle percussion of her low-frequency calls. Even in the womb, whale fetuses can hear, can feel vibration. They are born into music, into rhythm, into a language already moving through their skin before they take their first breath. It is not learned through books. It is absorbed, like heat, like sunlight through waves. As they grow, calves experiment. They babble. They test clicks and groans, trying on sounds like clothing, searching for what fits. Like human toddlers, they fumble through the grammar of their culture, guided by the melodies of their elders. And as they mature, their songs become more refined, more deliberate, more intricate. They join the choir of the sea, not just echoing, but contributing. And the ocean, with its perfect acoustic corridors, becomes both theatre and archive. Deep channels called sofar layers act like musical highways, allowing sound to travel farther than in any other environment on Earth. A single call can cross entire oceans. A single song can be heard by a whale hundreds, even thousands of miles away. It is as if the ocean itself wants these songs to be shared, to be carried, to be remembered. And we, on land with our antennas and hydrophones, listen like eavesdroppers outside a cathedral. We record, we analyse, we marvel. Yet for all our tools, we still don't understand most of what they're saying. We hear the form but not the full meaning. We hear the beauty but not the full intention. And maybe that's okay. Maybe not every song needs to be translated. Maybe some songs exist just to be sung, just to fill space with presence, just to say, I am here and so are you. There's something humbling about that. In a world so full of noise, alarms, alerts, arguments, the idea of sound made only for the sake of shared being is a kind of balm, a reminder that existence can be enough, that connection doesn't always require clarity, that resonance, even without understanding, can still be profound. And in this way, whale song is both mirror and mystery. It reflects what we know, memory, emotion, learning, culture, and it hides what we do not, intention, philosophy, perhaps even joy. But one thing is certain, these are not simple sounds. They are not background noise. They are the voice of a life form that left the land behind but carried something essential forward, the urge to speak beauty into the world. We often think of humans as the only artists, the only musicians, the only storytellers. But listen long enough and you begin to hear a different truth. That long before we carved flutes or beat drums, the sea was already singing. That whales, those ancient wanderers of the blue, have been making music for millions of years, not for us, not even for each other entirely, but because something inside them needs to rise up and ripple out. Perhaps that's what the ocean gave them in exchange for their legs. A voice, a stage, a deep reverberating theatre where sound becomes story and breath becomes ballad. And perhaps that's why we listen, not just to learn, but to remember. That music in its purest form belongs to no species. It is older than us, wilder, freer. And so the songs continue, even as the world above grows louder. Even as ships cross their highways and noise crowds their corridors, the whales still sing, still send their voices into the deep. Because singing for them is not optional. It is identity. It is tradition. It is a way of being. A way of remembering that even in the cold and dark there can be melody. There can be meaning. Now let yourself sink into the final current of this story, where the ocean holds not just sound, but soul. The whale's song, ever shifting, still drifts through the blue like a lullaby, written in the language of pressure and distance. It's easy to imagine that they sing only for each other, but perhaps, in some mysterious way, they sing for the ocean itself, for the waters that cradled them, transformed them, and offered them a new life. Their songs seem like offerings, gifted not out of need, but reverence. Because once mammals returned to the sea, they didn't just adapt to it, they became part of it. The boundary between body and ocean grows thinner the longer a creature stays. Salt enters the blood. Blubber stores the warmth of the sun-filtered currents. Ears become tuned to vibrations that pass not through air, but through the bones themselves. A whale does not simply live in the ocean. It listens with its entire being, and it speaks back in melodies that rise and fall like the tides. We know now that these songs travel not only across space but time. Recordings of whale songs from decades ago are compared to new ones, and researchers find themes, echoes, remembered refrains. It's as if the whales are in conversation not only with each other, but with their past selves. A kind of generational dialogue, passed not through writing or sculpture or tool, but through resonance. When a young whale sings an old motif, even slightly altered, it is bridging time. A note sung today may carry the fingerprint of a whale long gone, floating somewhere in the deep archive of collective memory. And what of the songs themselves? To us they sound strange, alien, haunting, beautiful. Some rise in slow, mournful arcs. Others dip and rattle like laughter bubbling from the sea floor. Yet all of them hold structure, a beginning, a middle, an end. They loop like stories told beside a fire, rhythmic and patterned. When slowed down or sped up they reveal layers, tones stacked upon tones, like a choir built from a single voice. It's easy to forget that each sound begins with breath. Each phrase begins with air borrowed from the surface pulled deep into lungs, then released as art. This breath, fleeting yet sacred, connects them back to us. For all their alien beauty, whales still need air, still rise to breathe, still break the surface like punctuation marks in an otherwise watery sentence. And in that brief moment above, where the sky returns and the stars blink down, perhaps the whale too remembers the land it left behind, the trees, the winds, the ancestors who once walked on legs. Then with a sigh it returns beneath, carrying its voice like a lantern into the dark. We often think of darkness as silence, but the ocean proves otherwise. It hums, it pulses, it sings. Even in the coldest trenches, even where sunlight has never touched, life finds a way to express itself in waves. Whales, with their vast hearts and patient songs, are the maestros of this hidden orchestra. Their melodies wrap around islands, brush against submarines, and ripple through the ears of sleeping fish. It is a music that asks for no applause, only presence. And presence in this case is everything. To be in the company of a singing whale, to feel it, not just hear it, is to feel the scale of another mind. A non-human intelligence, ancient and vast, moving through you like a wind you cannot see but cannot ignore. Some divers say it changes them, that it settles something inside, that the song rearranges their thoughts the way waves rearrange the shore. Not violently, just slowly, in rhythm, over time. Perhaps that is the ocean's final lesson, not in biology or sound waves, but in stillness, in listening, in allowing ourselves to be moved without fully understanding why. Whales do not require our comprehension. They ask only that we leave space for wonder, for awe, for the idea that something we do not fully grasp can still be deeply, unmistakably real. And in this way, their song becomes more than a marvel of nature. It becomes a reminder that evolution is not always a march forward. It is sometimes a return, that intelligence wears many forms, that art is not owned by humans, that voice can emerge anywhere there is breath and feeling and time. The ocean did not give whales their song as a tool, it gave it as a gift. And they in turn gave it to each other, passed it along through generations, layered it with meaning, and sent it into the currents like messages in glass bottles, meant not to be opened, but simply to drift, to be part of the sea. And so as you lie still now, as the sounds of the world soften around you, imagine that somewhere far away, a whale begins to sing. Maybe it's a song you've heard before, maybe it's new, but it begins with breath, with intention, with care, and it moves out into the blue, unhurried and sure, rising and falling like a lullaby meant for the world. It doesn't matter where it lands, it doesn't matter if it's answered. What matters is the song itself, that it was sung, that in the deep dark silence something beautiful rose, that life, warm breathing ancient life, chose to make sound simply because it could. This is the whale's secret. Not that they sing, but that they remember how. Out in the open sea, where nothing touches the horizon and the water folds into itself endlessly, there moves a shadow just beneath the surface. Not a fish, not a ghost, a whale, drifting slowly, rising and falling, not fully awake, not fully asleep. Its eye, dark and glassy, remains open, watching the world pass in silence. It is resting, but not like we do. For whales cannot surrender completely. They cannot fall into sleep as we know it, because to sleep entirely would mean forgetting to breathe, and in the ocean, forgetting to breathe is forgetting to live. Whales are mammals. That single truth changes everything. It means they need air. It means their lungs are like ours, filled not with gills, but with oxygen pulled from the sky. And unlike us, they cannot do it automatically. Every breath is a choice, a decision, a return to the surface that must be made again and again. Even in the deepest sleep, a whale must remember to rise, and so they never let go completely. Their sleep is not an escape. It is a dance with consciousness, delicate and deliberate. Scientists call this kind of sleep unihemispheric slow-wave sleep. It sounds complicated, but the idea is simple. Only one half of the whale's brain sleeps at a time. The other half stays awake, alert, watching, reminding the body to breathe. Then they switch. One side rests while the other keeps vigil, back and forth, like the tide. This rhythm keeps them alive, and it keeps them moving. Imagine trying to rest in a world where sinking too deep means never rising again, where sleep must be stitched carefully into wakefulness, where you cannot close both eyes, even in your most vulnerable moments. And yet the whale manages. It glides slowly, sometimes in circles, sometimes floating just beneath the surface, letting one half of its mind drift into stillness while the other listens for danger. It is a sleep shaped by the sea, light, alert, never selfish. And this has shaped their lives. A calf newly born and blinking against the bright blur of the sea cannot float alone. It must swim constantly to stay near the surface and to keep warm, so its mother helps. She nudges, she lifts, she stays close. She herself barely sleeps during the first weeks of her calf's life. Rest becomes a shared effort, a gift offered in shifts and silences. In those early days, mother and child are bound by more than blood. They are connected by breath, by proximity, by constant awareness. Even adult whales rarely stop moving for long. Some species, like sperm whales, rest vertically in the water, their bodies hanging like kelp stalks in the blue. For brief moments, 7 minutes, 10 at most, they become still. But even then, one part of their mind remains vigilant. Then, without sound or warning, they rise again. Not jolted, not startled, just returning as they must to the surface for breath. This sleep, or something like it, is not unique to whales. Dolphins do it. Some birds do it. Even a few land mammals have been known to sleep one hemisphere at a time. But in whales it is constant. It is survival. It is woven into every hour of their lives. And it carries with it a strange kind of poetry, a life lived always between two states, always balancing thought and stillness, vigilance and surrender. Consider what it means to be a creature that can never afford to forget, to never fully fall, to always keep part of yourself awake. There is a loneliness in that, and a wisdom. Perhaps this is why whales seem to move with such grace, not hurried, not flustered, but patient, deliberate, as if every action carries the weight of awareness, as if they have learned something we have not, that rest is not absence but presence, that you can be calm without closing your eyes to the world. Their bodies reflect this balance. Their hearts beat more slowly when they dive, their metabolism shifts, their muscles conserve, and when they do rest even partially, their posture changes. They float heavy but graceful like clouds anchored in water. Around them the sea holds its breath. There is no struggle, no fear, just the slow turning of an ancient rhythm shaped by breath and memory. And in this rhythm there is something deeply familiar, because we too carry the sea within us. Our lungs, wet and warm, mirror the tidal rhythms of whales. Our sleep cycles, though deeper and more complete, still carry the echo of vigilance, light stages, dreams, restlessness. We toss and turn and we stir, we wake without knowing why. And maybe that is not a flaw, maybe that is an inheritance. When we imagine rest, we often think of forgetting, of letting go entirely. But for whales, rest means remembering. Remembering to breathe, to rise, to listen. And maybe that is the lesson they offer, not how to escape the world, but how to remain in it gently, how to float even when tired, how to trust the water to carry you, even when one eye must stay open. So when you picture a whale at rest, don't imagine a motionless creature lost in dreams. Picture a being suspended between sleep and wakefulness, drifting like a lullaby sung half asleep. A creature that must breathe, must float, must remain half aware, and yet finds peace within those constraints. A peace not from forgetting, but from embracing. Because even in their most vulnerable moments, whales do not vanish into the dark. They stay, they drift, they hum, they breathe. And in doing so, they remind us that true rest is not always about retreating. Sometimes it is about finding stillness in motion, stillness in attention, stillness in the breath itself. Let's drift a little closer to this mystery of waking sleep, this delicate balance between consciousness and calm. Whales have lived in the sea far longer than we've been on land. Millions of years have shaped them, and in that shaping, sleep itself had to be reimagined. No longer the deep surrender of land mammals curled in caves or burrows, their rest became like water, fluid, partial, drifting. And the more scientists observe it, the more they find beauty in its design. When one hemisphere of a whale's brain sleeps, the other is still fully aware, processing sound, maintaining motor control, guiding the body to surface when needed. This is no groggy half-consciousness. It is a precise choreography, a partnership between hemispheres, a living example of duality. Each side rests, recovers, restores, and then trades places. Back and forth, hour after hour, a balance as natural as the sway of waves. But this balance isn't just for survival, it's also for navigation. The ocean, vast and featureless in places, offers no signs or trails. Whales must remember routes, recall feeding grounds, track their migration paths over thousands of miles. And all this while sleeping. Scientists believe this partial rest helps them maintain orientation even during sleep, allowing them to travel great distances without losing their way. It's like walking in your dreams but never stepping wrong, and their journeys are long. Grey whales migrate over 10,000 miles annually, from icy Arctic waters to warm breeding lagoons near the equator. Humpbacks too make epic voyages, guided by memory and instinct. These trips can take weeks, and whales rest along the way, never stopping entirely, never pulling over, but sleeping while gliding, while breathing, while continuing forward. Their migration is not just a movement across space, but a movement through awareness. What's even more incredible is how little we truly know about their dreams. Do whales dream? When half of the brain sleeps, does the other half imagine? Do the images of past hunts or long swims drift through their resting mind? We cannot ask them, and yet the question lingers. In dolphins, who share this same sleep pattern, scientists have observed eye movements and muscle twitches during unihemispheric sleep. These are signs we associate with REM, the stage where dreaming happens. If whales enter something like REM even briefly, then perhaps their dreams are not so different from ours. And imagine a whale, suspended in the blue, one half of its brain dreaming of coral reefs or chasing squid, while the other keeps watch. Imagine a mind split between memory and now, between thought and action. That gentle tension might be why their songs sound the way they do, fragmented, looping, half-formed and yet deeply intentional. A melody shaped by a mind always half in the world, half adrift. Some researchers believe this divided sleep is also what allows whales to remain social even while resting. In pods, they often sleep in coordinated patterns, some resting while others remain alert. It's a shared responsibility, a rotating trust. One whale rests, another leads, one sings, another listens. Their community is fluid, not fixed, and in this fluidity, rest becomes a collective rhythm. This too is part of their wisdom. They are not solitary dreamers, but communal drifters. Calves rest beside mothers, adolescents swim in pairs, adults move in synchronized lines. Sleep is not isolation, it is protection. It is presence. Even while one eye closes, the other watches for companions. Even while drifting, they remain together. And still, we return to breath. For all this complexity, every cycle begins with the simple need to breathe. Unlike us, whales do not breathe in their sleep unconsciously. Their brain must choose. Every inhale is an active thought, a pulse of intention. This makes their rest incredibly vulnerable, and yet they do it with trust. Trust in the sea, trust in their companions, trust in themselves. And perhaps it's not vulnerability at all, but a deeper kind of strength. To sleep with one eye open is not fear, it is awareness. To rest while travelling is not restlessness, it is efficiency. To keep singing even when only half awake is not confusion, it is devotion. Whales, it seems, have rewritten the rules of sleep itself. Where we see boundaries, awake or asleep, aware or unconscious, they see spectrum, transition, flexibility. Their rest is a gradient, not a switch. A slow dimming of the lights, not a complete blackout, and in that dimness, there is still life, still movement, still thought. Even their hearts slows in sleep. Their massive hearts, some the size of small cars, beat more slowly during these resting periods, conserving energy. Their blood flow adjusts, their muscles relax, and all of this happens while they float, while they drift, while they maintain just enough alertness to survive. This is a life unlike ours, and yet it touches something familiar. We too know partial rest. We nap, we doze, we wake in the night with one ear still listening. We dream of places we've been, even as our body lies still. And in moments of half sleep, when the world feels quiet and far away, we too become whales in the dark, remembering breath, drifting between thoughts held gently by something larger. So next time you close your eyes and feel the tug of sleep, imagine yourself at sea. Imagine one eye open, one ear listening, a slow, steady breath moving in and out, Around you the dark is soft, the current is kind, and you are not falling, you are floating. Because sleep, as the whales teach us, is not the end of awareness, it is its companion. A way to stay present, even while you rest. A way to move through the world with grace, with rhythm, with one eye always watching for dawn. Now let us float quietly into the final thoughts of this story, into the soft edge where science begins to feel like poetry, and where whales continue their lifelong drift between awareness and rest. Out in the vast blue, where nothing interrupts the quiet rhythm of the sea, the whale glides on, neither fully awake nor fully asleep. It is alive in a way we rarely are, alert to the moment, but gentle with it. This balance, this sleep with one eye open existence may not be what we humans dream of, but for the whale, it is perfect. It is enough. The more we learn about this strange unihemispheric slumber, the more it seems to tell us something about time, about consciousness, about being itself. Whales in their size and grace seem too large to be fragile, too vast to be delicate. But this need to remember each breath even while resting shows just how finely tuned they are to their environment. There is no margin for forgetting, no moment where awareness can fully dissolve, and yet within that challenge, they have carved out peace. Within constant remembering, they have found stillness. Even the sounds of their rest are different. No snoring, no stillness of a silent bedroom, just the ocean moving and shifting around them, the gentle rise of bubbles with each breath, the occasional low-frequency hum, the slap of a distant fluke. Their sleep is not quiet in the way we understand it, but it is calm, it is layered, and it is utterly their own. This way of resting has over time shaped their brains differently. The structures responsible for regulating consciousness are more complex. Their capacity to control and divide awareness has surpassed what most mammals ever evolved. It is not that they chose this path, the ocean chose it for them. Evolution does not ask permission, it makes possibilities, and whales, in their quiet genius, simply followed where it led. They became masters of partial sleep, of restful vigilance, of movement paired with serenity. And perhaps this is why their presence feels so peaceful to us. When we watch a whale surface and exhale, a plume of mist rising into the sky, it feels like something holy, a ritual, a slow acknowledgement of life in its most conscious form. Then it dives again, re-entering the vast dark with the same grace it left it. In and out, above and below, wake and rest. The boundary between them has faded. For the whale there is no hard line, only flow. We have always been fascinated by sleep. We study it, we measure it, we try to fix it, but rarely do we see it as whales do, not as a binary but as a rhythm. Something to tune ourselves to, something to participate in without resistance. They show us that rest does not always mean stopping, that stillness can exist even in motion, that one half of the mind can dream while the other watches the world. For young whales, this lesson begins early. A calf swims near its mother's side, mimicking her pace, absorbing her patterns. She nudges it toward the surface when it forgets to breathe. She circles slowly, never far, always present. She cannot sleep deeply, not yet. She gives her time, her warmth, her energy to the calf's survival. For weeks, sometimes months, this quiet choreography continues, mother always aware, always giving. And the calf, in turn, learns to rest in rhythm with her, to drift and breathe, to rise and sink, to find safety in movement. What is rest, after all, if not trust? Trust that the body will keep floating, trust that your surroundings will not betray you, trust that you are not alone. Whales, with their half-closed eyes and constant breath, live this trust every hour. They trust the ocean to hold them, their group to guard them, their instincts to guide them back to the surface again and again. And we, in our busy world of endless alerts and glowing screens, can learn from them. We forget to rest not because we can't, but because we think we must shut everything off to do so. But perhaps true rest is softer. Perhaps it does not require retreat, only balance. A willingness to stay partially awake, partially tuned, partially aware of beauty, even while the body slows. As the whale sleeps with half its brain, it still feels the ocean, still hears the songs of its companions, still moves with the current. It is never disconnected, never isolated. Its dreams, if dreams indeed come, are shaped not in science but in the presence of all things. And perhaps this is what makes their rest feel so poetic. It is not a separation from the world, but a deeper entanglement with it. So let the image stay with you, a massive being drifting in the dark, one eye closed, one open, breathing slowly, singing softly, alive in every sense, even while resting. The ocean, vast and tender, wraps around it like a blanket. No rush, no panic, only rhythm, only presence, and maybe, just maybe, we can learn to rest like whales, not by shutting down, but by finding balance, by listening to the quiet without needing it to be silent, by breathing not to escape but to return, and by trusting that half of us can sleep while the other half carries us forward. Because in the end, the whales remind us of something gentle and true, that even in a world that never stops, you can still find stillness, you can still drift, you can still rest, softly, surely, halfway awake and fully at peace. Before we were humans walking on land, before even the smallest mammals crept through forest leaves, we were something else, something soft, suspended, and silent. In the beginning we belonged to the sea, not just metaphorically, but truly, completely. Every cell in your body still remembers. Every heartbeat echoes it. The ocean is not just around us, it is inside us. And if you listen closely, you can hear its pulse, feel its memory. Salt in your blood, tides in your breath, waves in your rhythm. We may have left the sea long ago, but it never left us. Our bodies are, in many ways, small oceans. Your blood, red and warm, holds the same concentration of salt as ancient seawater. It carries sodium, potassium, chloride, ions that once flowed freely in the Earth's early oceans. When life began, it began in salt water. The first cells floated there, protected and nourished by the sea's embrace. Over time, as life grew more complex, it carried a piece of that environment inside. The earliest organisms didn't just live in the sea, they built it into themselves. And we, the far-off descendants of those simple swimmers, still carry that internal tide. When a human baby begins to grow, it floats in amniotic fluid, a salty, warm world of weightlessness. That fluid has a similar mineral composition to seawater. It's as though evolution gives every one of us a brief return home. A few months suspended in the ocean we used to live in, wrapped in warmth and quiet motion. We begin our lives in liquid, with webbed fingers, with gill-like slits in our throats. We are built by memory, shaped by places we no longer see but never truly left. Even your tears when you cry taste like the sea. Your sweat too dries into tiny crystals of salt. These are not accidents. These are fossils of function, tiny remnants of the ocean still speaking through your biology. Salt is not just seasoning for food, it is the medium of life. Every nerve impulse in your body, every muscle contraction, depends on ions moving through watery pathways. Without salt, there is no communication, no thought, no motion. Your body, at its most fundamental level, is a salty sea of signals. And yet we rarely think of it this way. We walk through forests and deserts, climb mountains, build cities far from shore, and forget that inside us the tide never stopped. Our veins pulse like waves. Our hearts beat with a rhythm that once matched the rocking of currents. Even our breath, rising and falling, is a tide pulled not by the moon, but by the need to exchange gases, oxygen in, carbon dioxide out, just as fish do with gills, just as oceans do with air. Some scientists believe that early land animals didn't conquer the land so much as they brought the ocean with them. They developed ways to seal it inside. Skin became waterproof. Kidneys evolved to hold on to precious salts. Mouths learned to drink, not just absorb. The inner ear retained balance through fluid-filled canals, whispering direction like ripples on a still pond. Everything we needed to survive the dry world came from our time in the wet one. We didn't abandon the ocean. We packed it into our bodies like a secret. And this secret connects us not just to the sea, but to every other creature who carries that same memory. A cat laps at water and its tongue leaves tiny waves. A bird shakes off rain and the droplets mimic tides. Elephants, though vast and dry-skinned, return to rivers daily. Even desert lizards store moisture in their blood, their salt content rising to conserve life. All of them, all of us, are part of a great lineage, a procession of water carriers who stepped away from the ocean but never truly let go. There's something poetic in that water is both within us and beyond us, that the ocean does not demand our loyalty, but quietly continues to echo through our cells. It hums in your blood pressure, it sways in your inner ear, it balances your chemistry, and even when you're far from the shore, it calls to you, not loudly, but persistently. Why else do we feel calm by the sea? Why else does the sound of waves soothe us, even when heard through headphones, far from the real thing? Perhaps it's because the sound is not new, it is familiar. It is home. We may measure time in clocks and calendars, but the body remembers differently. The body counts in breaths, in heartbeats, in tides, and in salt. Even now in hospitals, the most basic life-saving treatment is often a simple saline drip, salt water, flowing back into veins, restoring balance. A quiet reminder that health begins with the ocean, that to bring a body back from the brink is often to return it to water. And so we continue to live as walking seas, carrying the ocean with us into cities, across deserts, up mountains. We sweat, we cry, we bleed. And through it all, the salt remains. It moves with us. It binds us to every fish, every jellyfish, every coral and crab. It makes us kin. Not in metaphor, in fact. In function, in fluid. When whales returned to the sea, they didn't need to rebuild themselves from scratch. Their bodies still remembered. They thickened their blubber. They shaped their lungs for diving, but the salt was already there. The chemistry of their blood, the rhythm of their cells, it all welcomed the water back, like a song remembered from childhood, like a homecoming. They slipped beneath the waves not as strangers, but as heirs. And we, though we stayed above, still carry that same inheritance, still hold oceans in our organs, still breathe with the quiet confidence of creatures made of tide and breath and salt. You are not separate from the sea, you are not distant from the origin. You are the ocean, folded in skin, wrapped in thought, walking quietly beneath the sky. So next time you take a breath, feel the way your chest rises, as the sea once rose and fell. Feel the salt on your lips after a run, after a cry, after a swim. Taste it, and know, the ocean is not only around you, it is inside you. It is you, and it always has been. Let's drift deeper now, into the current beneath the surface, where the science of salt becomes something more than chemistry, where it becomes story. Inside every mammal, inside every heartbeat, there is a quiet conversation taking place, a balance of salt and water, of pressure and purpose. This conversation began in the ancient sea, and though we no longer swim through it, our bodies still speak its language. Your blood plasma, the liquid that carries oxygen, nutrients, and messages throughout your body, mirrors the mineral content of the Earth's early oceans. Not perfectly, but close enough to remind us where we came from. Sodium, potassium, calcium, chloride, all essential to life, all once dissolved in the sea. When the first cells enclosed themselves in membranes and floated freely, they brought this chemistry with them. They created tiny oceans inside themselves, tiny tides they could control. And over time, these miniature seas grew into tissues, into organs, into bodies like yours. Every cell in your body sits bathed in fluid that mimics seawater. Every impulse in your brain is a shift in salt, a wave of charged particles moving across a membrane. This is how thought happens. Not in the air, but in fluid. Not in silence, but in the hiss of ions moving like currents in a deep trench. Even your ability to move depends on salt. Muscles fire when calcium floods into their cells. Without it, your limbs would freeze. Your heart would stop. The body would become quiet not from pain but from stillness. Salt keeps us moving. It keeps us alive. This balance, however, is delicate. Too much salt and the cells shrink. Too little and they swell. The kidneys, those quiet filters tucked away in your lower back, work constantly to maintain this equilibrium. They sift the blood, reclaim the salts you need, discard the rest. They decide moment by moment what to keep, what to let go. Their wisdom is ancient, shaped by millions of years of life learning how to walk with the ocean still inside. Even your bones hold echoes of the sea. They are made of calcium phosphate, a mineral that once dissolved in the oceans and settled into the shells of early marine life. When animals began to grow skeletons, they borrowed this material from the world around them. And now it is part of you. Every step you take, every time you stretch or stand, you are leaning on an architecture first born in water. And the brain, our most mysterious organ, is surrounded by cerebrospinal fluid, another saltwater cushion, a gentle bath that cradles thought. It protects, it nourishes, it flows, like a tide between the skull and the spine. Scientists still don't fully understand everything it does, but they know this. Without it, the brain would be vulnerable. The sea, it seems, still guards its creations. There is beauty in how universal this is. It doesn't matter if you are a whale or a wolf, a bird or a bear, a human or a bat. If you are a mammal, the salt water flows within you. It is part of your architecture. It is the background music of your biology, and it connects you to every other creature that walks, swims, flies, or crawls. You may never meet them, you may never see them, but your blood sings the same song. Whales, of course, returned to the source. They dove back into the salt they carried with them, and in doing so they revealed how little had changed. Their bodies slipped easily into the sea's embrace. Their kidneys adapted, their skin thickened, but their blood, their essence, was already ready. Their songs, strange and powerful, echoed through the water not just as sound, but as history. Marine mammals have evolved ways to drink seawater, to reclaim fresh water from their food, to excrete salt through specialized glands or highly efficient kidneys. They do not suffer from thirst the way we would. They have learned to live in salt, to filter it, to flow with it. And yet the principle remains. The ocean inside must always match the ocean outside, or life begins to unravel. This balance isn't only physical, it's emotional too. Many people report feeling calmer by the sea, more grounded, more connected. Maybe it's the rhythm, maybe it's the sound, or maybe it's recognition, a subconscious memory of being held by something larger, something familiar. Salt is not just in the body, it's in our stories, our myths, our tears. It has always stood for preservation, for value, for life. In ancient cultures, salt was sacred. It was traded, it was worshipped, it was used in blessings, in rituals, in medicine. Deep down, we've always known salt is life, and yet it can harm as well. Rising salt levels in soil can destroy crops. Salinity in water can make it undrinkable. In the wrong place or in excess, salt becomes a slow poison. This duality reflects nature itself, its gifts and warnings, its balances and breaks. The lesson is not to fear salt, but to understand it, to respect the thin line that separates harmony from harm. Even in space where no ocean flows, astronauts carry salt tablets and manage their electrolyte balance carefully. The body, removed from gravity and Earth's rhythms, still requires its inner ocean to stay steady. Even there, far from tides and waves, the sea goes with them, carried in vessels of skin and bone, whispering that no matter how far we travel, we never truly leave home. So here you are, on land, breathing air, walking beneath trees, and still, inside you the salt flows. The ocean hums. Every breath, every blink, every pulse is a continuation of a journey that began long before you were born. You are not just part of nature. You are part of water, part of salt, part of a memory held in muscle and marrow. And perhaps this is why we return to the ocean again and again, why we swim in it, float in it, stand at its edge and gaze out for hours, not just for beauty, but for something deeper, something older, a recognition, a remembering. Because the ocean is not a place we go to, it's a place we come from, and it's still with us, in our blood, in our tears, in the quiet mineral tide that moves through every living cell. Now let us follow the tide to the gentle close of this story, where the salt within us speaks not just of survival, but of connection. The more we explore, the clearer it becomes. We are not separate from the ocean. We are its continuation. We walk upon land only because we learn to carry the sea inside us. Every heartbeat, every breath, every blink is a soft reminder of that quiet contract, a promise made long ago that even if we leave the water, we will remember what it gave us. Salt, in all its simplicity, becomes sacred in this context, not merely a mineral, but a memory, a presence, a soft echo of where life first stirred. Think of your tears, not just emotional, but biological. When you cry, you don't just release sadness, you release something older, something deeper. You release water shaped by evolution. You release the ocean distilled through human experience. When sweat rolls down your skin, it is the ocean's signature, salty, warm, persistent. Even when the body is strained or joyful or fearful, it whispers, "I still carry the sea." Look deeper into the chemistry of life and the pattern repeats. Every nerve signal is a ripple of sodium and potassium flowing through microscopic channels that pulse with purpose. This isn't poetry, it's physics. It's biology. It's the very mechanism that allows your brain to imagine, to remember, to wonder. Without salt, thought cannot exist, movement cannot happen. Salt is not an accessory to life, it is life, a thread woven through the tapestry of every living moment. And this thread connects us beyond species. Elephants crave salt and travel miles to find it. Butterflies sip from mineral-rich puddles. Antelopes seek out ancient salt licks. It's not indulgence, it's instinct. A shared language spoken in thirst, in craving, in the deep knowledge that salt is survival. The craving for salt is older than hunger, older than fear. It is need, shaped over eons, passed from cell to cell, generation to generation. Even plants understand this language in their own way. Salt in soil can nourish or destroy depending on balance. Mangrove trees, rooted in salty marshes, filters the water to survive. Some excrete excess salt through their leaves. Others lock it away in sacrificial branches. The strategies vary, but the lesson remains. Salt must be honoured, managed, held carefully. And humans have done this too, in rituals and recipes and rites. We've salted meat to preserve it through winter. We've sprinkled salt in thresholds to keep spirits away. We've offered it to gods and carried it across deserts. Wars have been fought over it. Civilizations built near it. Cities named for it. In every age, salt has stood for purity, for power, for permanence. But beyond these uses, salt's quietest truth is the one within us. The fact that no matter how far we stray from shorelines, how high we build our towers, how dry our maps may seem, we are still tethered to the sea. Our inner chemistry does not forget. Our biology does not evolve away from it. We are, in the deepest sense, aquatic beings clothed in land-walking forms. This might explain why the ocean feels like a mirror. When you stand beside it, you don't just see water, you see yourself, reflected, vast, mysterious. The waves rise and fall like your chest. The tides return like your thoughts. The salt air fills your lungs and stirs something ancient. You may not remember your ancestors crawling from the sea, but your body does. Even illness in some cases reveals this connection. Dehydration is not just lack of water, it's imbalance in salt. Muscles cramp, thoughts cloud, the body, finely tuned to a specific salinity, begins to falter. It is as if, without the proper salt water within, the machinery of life grinds to a halt. Restore the balance, and clarity returns. The body once again becomes an ocean in motion. And yet, for all its importance, salt does not demand attention. It does not announce itself with colour or scent. It waits, hidden in fluids, in sweat, in blood. It is humble, constant, necessary. Like love that asks for nothing but gives everything, salt supports without needing to be seen. And maybe that is why we forget. Not because it's unimportant, but because it's always there. So pause for a moment. Feel your pulse, that steady thump beneath skin. Know that each beat is powered by waves of ions, tiny tides rushing across membranes, guiding signals, carrying life forward. When you close your eyes and breathe deeply, the air nourishes, yes, but the salt within distributes that gift, shares it, delivers it where it's needed. This is partnership, this is ancient trust, and it extends always to the whales, these giants of the deep, these breathing echoes of our past. Did not find the ocean unfamiliar when they returned. They found it waiting, welcoming. Their blood, like ours, already knew the rules. Their salt, like ours, already matched the water around them. They swam not as strangers, but as prodigal kin. And in their songs, their long haunting calls, perhaps we hear not just music, but memory. Because the ocean inside you still listens, still remembers, still sings. It flows through every vein, every tear, every drop of sweat. It is with you when you cry, when you dance, when you sleep. It connects you to whales and fish, to raindrops and rivers, to the clouds that rise from waves and the storms that bring them back. You are not a visitor to the earth. You are part of its cycle. You are made of it. You are moved by it. And so this story ends where it began. not at the edge of the sea, but inside your very cells. The salt in your veins is not just a fact, it is a story, a lullaby, a link, a reminder that you are never far from where life began, that the ocean flows within you still, and always will. Beneath the surface of the sea where sunlight cannot reach, and the world turns from blue to black, the ocean is not silent. It is alive with sound. Not the kind of sound we hear on land, shouts, engines, footsteps, but something deeper, something more fluid. Pulses, clicks, songs that stretch for miles. This is the world of whales, a realm where sight fades but sound remains, where each vibration becomes a brushstroke, each echo a colour, each returning signal a piece of the picture. In this place, whales do not just hear, they see with sound, they paint the sea with echoes. On land, we depend on light to understand our surroundings. We look, we scan, we read the world through eyes. But in the depths of the ocean, light disappears quickly. By the time a whale has descended a few hundred meters, there is no more colour, no more shape, only darkness. But darkness to a whale is not the end of perception. It is the beginning of another way of knowing, a way shaped by sound. Whales use echolocation, a biological sonar, to map the world around them. They produce clicks in their foreheads, using a fatty organ called the melon to focus the sound into a beam. That sound travels through the water until it hits something, a fish, a rock, another whale, and then it bounces back. The returning echoes are received by their lower jaw and transmitted to the middle ear. It's a conversation made entirely of reflections. A whisper returned becomes a message. A world once unseen becomes vivid. Imagine closing your eyes and clapping your hands. The sound bounces off the walls, the furniture, the space are around you. Now imagine that every bounce gives you not just a sense of distance, but of shape, size, movement. That is what whales experience. They do not need to see a school of fish, they can hear its shape. They do not need to touch an iceberg, they can hear its edge. Sound gives them dimension, structure, information. The ocean in their ears becomes a cathedral of echoes. Some whales, like sperm whales and beaked whales, dive thousands of meters below the surface in search of squid and other deep-sea prey. Down there it's as black as space, but these whales move confidently. They know where they are, they know what surrounds them. Their clicks grow faster as they approach their targets, called a buzz, and guide them with stunning precision. It's a dance in the dark, guided by sound, performed without ever seeing their partner. But not all whales use sound in the same way. Toothed whales like dolphins, orcas, and sperm whales use echolocation actively. They scan, they navigate, they hunt. Baleen whales like humpbacks and blue whales do not echolocate in the same way, but they are no less masters of sound. Their calls, deep and long and low, travel not for meters but for hundreds of miles. These calls carry meaning, emotion, intention. They connect whales separated by vast distances, and in doing so they create a kind of auditory map, not of objects but of presence, of community. Sound travels farther and faster in water than in air. In fact, underwater, sound can move up to 4 times faster than it does above the surface. This gives whales a powerful tool. A single call can echo across an entire ocean basin. A song sung by one whale can be heard by another, halfway across the world. No wires, no satellites, just the ancient invisible web of acoustic connection. The sea is full of layers, thermoclines, haloclines, pressure zones, that affect how sound travels. Whales, through instinct or practice or both, seem to know these layers. They adjust their calls, choosing frequencies that bend and bounce, rise and dive, following paths we're only beginning to understand. To us, it's sonar physics. To them, it's natural, intuitive, a sixth sense honed over millions of years. And this sense does more than guide them, it defines their identity. Orcas, for example, live in tight-knit pods. Each pod has its own dialect, its own specific set of calls. These are passed down through generations, like songs in a family. A calf learns not just to speak, but to speak in its own accent, in its own voice. And when orcas from different pods meet, they listen, they recognize. Sometimes they play, sometimes they avoid. Their culture, shaped by sound, is as rich and varied as any human language. Sperm whales take it even further. They use patterned clicks called codas, arranged in sequences that function like phrases. These codas vary by clan, large, culturally distinct groups that span oceans. Scientists believe these coders help identify membership, build bonds, and coordinate movement. It's not just noise, it's syntax, it's tradition, a song that says not only "I am here," but "I belong." Even humpback whales, famous for their long, complex songs, reveal something deeper through sound. Their songs are shared across populations, changed gradually over time, studied like music, analysed like poetry. Each season, new themes emerge, old ones fade. It is a process of evolution not in genes, but in voices, in memory, in sound passed across waves and years. This is not just communication, it is creation. A way of making meaning in a world without borders, without light, without silence. Whales do not simply survive in this acoustic realm, they thrive. They explore, they sing, they listen with their whole bodies. Their lower jaws are acoustic windows, their skulls are built for reception, their very being is tuned to vibration. And so, in this dark, echoing world, they paint their surroundings not with sight, but with sound. They send out pulses like brushstrokes. They gather echoes like colours. They construct living maps with every click and call. The ocean, vast and unknowable to us, becomes intimate and clear to them, crafted through sound, remembered through song, understood through rhythm. We often forget how powerful sound can be. We focus on sight, on the visible. But whales remind us that listening is a form of seeing, that echoes are not just afterthoughts, but messages, that even in darkness a world can bloom, shaped not by light, but by the return of a sound we sent out in faith. And perhaps in this we begin to understand something essential. That perception is not limited to what we see. That knowledge can come in waves, in reverberations, in the silent hum beneath everything. The whales live by this truth, and as we listen to their calls captured by our hydrophones travelling into our headphones, we hear not only their voices, but their vision, their understanding, their way of painting the deep. Let us move deeper now, past the gentle surface where sound dances lightly, into the heart of the deep where whales live by echoes, where the invisible becomes seen through vibration. The ocean in these places is not a void. It is alive with texture, carved entirely in sound. And for whales, this isn't just perception, it is memory. Sound allows them not only to navigate, but to remember their world, to carry its shape inside them even when the sea shifts and currents change. Imagine being born into a world where light never fully arrives, where shadows have no meaning, and sight fades into blur. What would it mean to know a coral wall not by shape but by its echo? To feel the distance to the seafloor not through depth but through resonance? This is the whale's world, and it begins with a single sound, one they make themselves, launched like a question into the dark. When that sound returns, it is no longer the same, it carries answers, and the whale listens. Their echolocation clicks are not just pulses, they are instruments of resolution. The shorter the interval between clicks, the finer the detail. It's like adjusting the focus of a lens, except that lens is made of sound. And with each adjustment, the picture sharpens. This level of acoustic precision allows whales to detect objects as small as a coin, to distinguish between different species of fish, even to sense the air pockets inside their prey. They can tell not just where something is, but what it is. In a way, they taste the world with sound. And what they build from these echoes is not just a map, it is a memory palace. Evidence suggests whales have extraordinary spatial awareness. Migrating species like the grey whale or the humpback follow routes thousands of miles long, returning to the same breeding and feeding grounds year after year with stunning accuracy. How do they know the way? Part of it may be magnetic sense, part celestial cues, but sound plays a role too. Underwater features create unique acoustic signatures. Seamounts, coastlines, ice shelves, all of them sing in their own way. To whales, the ocean is filled with familiar voices. Navigation becomes less like following a line and more like remembering a song. And within this symphony of perception lies another truth. Whales don't just hear with their ears, they hear with their entire bodies. Vibrations pass through bone, through fluid, through tissue. Their jaws, wide and dense, act like receivers. Their heads are designed to gather sound from all directions. It's as if their entire being is tuned to listen. And when they listen, they are not passive. They interpret, they respond, they adjust. Even in communication, sound is not just a tool but a bridge. Whales use a wide range of sounds to connect, with their young, with their mates, with their pod. Low moans, high whistles, pulsed calls, some are playful, some are warnings, some are invitations. Each sound travels through the water not like a word but like a feeling. And because whales can hold calls for hours, they can sustain these connections over great distance. Blue whale's call, for example, is so low it's nearly below human hearing, but it can travel for hundreds of miles. One whale, alone in the vastness, can reach another it cannot see. And that contact, that echo answered, becomes a moment of belonging. For calves, these sounds become the language of learning. A baby whale hears its mother's voice through every phase of life. Her tones soothe, her pulses guide. When they dive together, the calf stays close, not just through sight but through sound. When separated, the calf calls out, a rising tone of need, and the mother answers. This exchange becomes a tether, a lifeline woven in sound. As the calf grows, it begins to experiment. Like a child babbling syllables, it plays with tone and rhythm. It listens. It imitates. Some whales develop unique calls over time, individual signatures that identify them the way a voice does for humans. Among dolphins, this has been especially well documented. Each dolphin has a signature whistle, a name sung in frequency. They recognize the names of others. They respond to their own. This suggests not only identity, but memory. The voice carries not just sound, but self. In some species, like the bottlenose dolphin, individuals remember the whistles of companions they haven't seen in decades. It's as though the memory of sound outlasts the need for it. These long acoustic memories may also exist in large whales. When they reunite, the song resumes, not from the beginning, but from the place they left off. A melody paused, then picked up again, as if no time has passed. And in the deepest parts of the sea where no sun has ever shone, some species of beaked whales live nearly invisible lives. They surface rarely, dive deeply, and use echolocation that is finely tuned, nearly impossible to detect with standard instruments. Their world is quiet not because it lacks sound, but because it is carefully chosen. These whales seem to speak in whispers, delicate clicks that avoid detection by predators, that travel only as far as needed, that share only what must be said. Their silence is not absence, it is design, it is survival, and through all of this, sound becomes something sacred, a thread between mind and world, a rope thrown through darkness, a paintbrush without bristles. With each click, the whale says, "I am here." With each echo, the ocean replies, "So is everything else." In this conversation, the sea reveals itself, not as a void, but as a tapestry, woven in waves, coloured by distance, shaped by sound, and the whales, these gentle navigators, carry its map not on paper, not in GPS, but in their very bones, in the vibrations they hear, in the echoes they collect, in the music they remember. We may never fully know what it's like to live in this acoustic world, to see without seeing, to reach without touching, but we can imagine, we can listen, and in doing so we begin to hear the world differently, not as noise, but as meaning, not as background, but as story. Because for whales, sound is not just information, it is life, it is light, it is language, it is the sea speaking back. Now let us drift into the quietest parts of this story, where the echoes soften and deepen, where sound is no longer just a tool for sight, but a vessel of memory and meaning. In the vast underwater world, whales are not simply floating bodies, they are composers, listeners, and archivists. They do not just pass through the sea, they record it. They imprint it within themselves, not in ink, not in books, but in the vibrations of their bones, in the pulses of their songs. In recent years, scientists have begun to realize just how deep this sonic memory might go. Some whales follow the same migratory paths their ancestors did centuries ago, guided not by landmarks, but perhaps by echoes of ancient calls that still resonate faintly in the water. These may not be the same songs, but their shapes are familiar. Their rhythm matches a past that still lives in the minds of those who travel it. A blue whale born in the Southern Ocean might return to feed in the same bay her mother did, not by sight, but by song, by a deep sense of sound tied to place. This idea, that a location has a voice is not unique to whales. Humans feel it too. Certain songs remind us of home, certain voices bring back memories, but whales take this further. They live in a world built entirely of such connections. Every place they travel through carries a sonic fingerprint. Every trench has its echo, every coastline its hum. To them, geography is soundscape. The map is not drawn, it is sung. And in this sonic landscape, time slows down. A humpback song, stretching for hours, loops and folds in a way that defies urgency. There is no rush, no climax, no need to finish. It wanders like a lazy river, meandering through variations, returning again and again to motifs that feel familiar, but never quite the same. To human ears, these songs may sound strange, even sad. But perhaps they are simply patient, content to exist without conclusion, without destination. Some researchers believe whale song serves as a kind of group meditation, a synchronizing pulse that helps individuals stay in emotional and cognitive harmony. When multiple humpbacks sing the same song, scattered across an ocean basin, they are not performing, they are aligning. They are keeping rhythm with one another, like drummers who've never met, like hearts that beat apart but still feel the same tempo. And when the song changes, when a new phrase is introduced, it spreads slowly, respectfully, as if asking, "May I join? May I share this space with you?" There is grace in that, in the willingness to adapt, to absorb, to evolve together. It suggests not just intelligence, but empathy, a sense of a community carried not in touch or sight, but in sound. It may be one of the oldest forms of shared experience on Earth, but what happens when the ocean becomes too loud? When ship engines, drilling, sonar, and explosions crowd the sea with noise that does not belong? For whales, this intrusion is not just inconvenient, it is disorienting. Their delicate communication, their echolocation, their song maps, everything can be blurred, interrupted, erased. Noise pollution doesn't just damage ears, it distorts worlds, it disrupts migrations, it separates mothers and calves, it forces silence where once there was song. Imagine trying to talk to your family across a quiet field. Then imagine that field filled with sirens and static and engines that never stop. The words don't get through, the meaning vanishes. That is the new reality for many marine mammals. In some regions, whales have had to shout, raising the volume of their calls just to be heard. But louder is not always better. Louder is strain. Louder is desperation. And even then, sometimes the other whale cannot hear. Despite this, they continue to sing. In quieter places, sanctuaries of calm where human activity fades, they return to their natural volume, they resume their patterns, the songs recover. Like forests after fire, they regrow in silence. Slowly, beautifully, there is resilience in this, a quiet insistence that the ocean is still a place for song, that even in noise the memory of music remains. And perhaps this is the heart of it. Whales do not sing because they must. They sing because the sea gives them space to, because sound is their art, their survival, their language, and their gift. Because through song they are known. Through song they remember. Through song they live. There is an intimacy to this that is hard to describe. We listen to recordings of whale song, collected by hydrophones in the deep, and feel something shift inside us, not because we understand it, but because we don't. Because it touches something older, something more elemental. It is as if the sea itself is speaking and the whale is its voice. When we close our eyes and listen, we are not alone. We are surrounded by sentient beings who navigate by echo, who dream in pulses, who hold history in harmonics. We may never fully translate their language, but we can witness its beauty. We can respect its depth. We can protect the silence it needs to flourish. And so the whale sings, not to impress, not to entertain, but to exist. Its voice rises through the water like smoke through air, curling and fading and returning. Each note is a gesture, each pause a breath, each echo a hand reaching out. And though we may not answer, we are changed by the listening. Because to hear the world through their ears is to understand it differently. It is to feel that even in darkness there is connection. Even in silence there is structure. Even in the deep where no light enters, there can be vision. A vision made not of sight but of sound. And in this vision, the whale swims. Calm, patient, listening, singing. painting its world one echo at a time. Before we were walkers of land, before lungs pulled air and eyes squinted against the sun, we were something softer, boneless, breathless, drifting. Our ancestors belonged to the sea, not just in spirit, but in shape. They had no spine, no skeleton, no structure as we know it. But slowly, over millions of years, the sea began its sculpting. It folded tissue into form. It shaped organs, stretched nerves, layered muscle. It carved what would one day become a spine, a flexible rod of strength that would allow movement, balance, and eventually thought. The ocean did not simply host life, it built it, one vertebra at a time. The story of the spine is not a single event. It is a long unfolding. In the beginning, life was simple, tiny single-celled, floating. But the sea was rich, full of energy, full of motion. Those who learned to sense their surroundings, to move with purpose, to follow light or food, thrived. And with movement came the need for stability. Enter the notochord, the earliest precursor to the backbone, a rod of cartilage that gave the first swimmers a sense of direction. It wasn't hard like bone. It bent, it flexed, it remembered shape. It was the first whisper of structure in a world of flow. This flexible rod marked the birth of chordates, the group that includes everything from fish to humans. Over time, the notochord evolved. It segmented, it calcified, vertebrae formed, and with them something astonishing: protection for a central nerve cord. The spine became not just support, but shield, a living hallway through which messages could travel from brain to body faster than ever before. Movement became coordinated, reactions became faster, the body became an orchestra, the spine its conductor. Fish were the first true vertebrates, their spines like ladders of bone running through sleek, muscular bodies. They moved with grace, rippling through water, turning pressure into propulsion. Their brains grew more complex, their fins became tools. Over time, some began to explore the shallows, regions where the sea kissed the land. They did not know they were preparing for something more, but evolution was watching, gently nudging. Limbs began to form, ribs thickened, eyes shifted forward. And in the bones of these ancient fish, we find the early blueprints of hands, arms, legs. The leap to land was not sudden. It was a million small adjustments. Some creatures learned to hold themselves up in shallow water, using stiffened fins as props. Some learned to breathe air, supplementing their gills with rudimentary lungs. But the spine, oh, the spine, had to learn a new role. In water, it flexed and flowed. On land, it had to support, it had to lift, it had to carry weight against gravity's pull. And so it changed again, gaining curves, strengthening joints, learning to balance a shell high above the ground. Even today, the curves of your own spine tell this story. The C-shape of a newborn's back mirrors the fish-like posture of our earliest vertebrate ancestors. As the child grows, new curves form. The S-shape that lets us walk upright, balance our head, move with grace. Each vertebra, each disc, each ligament speaks of adaptation, of water becoming land, of float becoming stride, and still, the sea never let go. Even as our ancestors roamed forests and plains, the ocean lingered inside them. Their spines retained the flexibility of swimmers, their rib cages echoed the motion of gills expanding and contracting. Their hands, with 5 fingers, mirrored the fin bones of lobe-finned fish. The blueprint was never erased, only revised. Consider the whales, mammals like us. Once land dwellers, they returned to the sea, and in doing so, their spines told the story in reverse. They lengthened. They shed unnecessary bones. Their hips shrank. Their legs vanished. The vertebrae adapted once again to waves, to undulation, to the rolling, rising rhythm of the deep. They did not forget how to walk. They simply stopped needing to. This is the magic of the spine. It remembers. It adapts. It evolves without erasing. Within its bones lie the fossils of motion, the shapes of every place we've ever belonged to. From the depths of Cambrian seas to the soft soil of ancient forests to the bright skies under which we now stand, the spine has carried us forward silently, powerfully, patiently. And it is more than scaffolding. Within it runs the spinal cord, a column of delicate nerves wrapped in protection, bathed in fluid. This is where sensation becomes movement, where thought becomes action, where the whisper of an idea travels down and becomes a step, a leap, a song played on fingers or toes. The spine is not merely physical, it is electrical, it is alive. We often think of the brain as the seat of intelligence, but the spine plays its own quiet role. It filters, it processes, it decides. Reflexes happen before thought, within the spinal cord itself, decisions made in milliseconds, before the brain is even aware. A hand pulls away from flame, a foot lifts from a sharp stone. This is wisdom born not of reflection, but of speed. The spine, in its own way, is a thinker, and yet it is also a memory, a link to every creature that ever swam, crawled, stood, or flew. To touch your spine is to touch a chain of life stretching back 500 million years. To feel it bend and straighten is to reenact every movement evolution ever gave you. You are not just a person walking upright, you are the latest expression of a long, long dance, a dance begun in water, sustained in moan. So the next time you stretch or twist or simply sit, remember what moves you. Remember the sea that sculpted your core, the tides that pressed you into shape, the fish that flexed their early backs in warm lagoons, the lungs that grew in tandem with vertebrae, the fins that dreamed of fingers. You are not far from them. You carry them still in posture, in rhythm, in the quiet intelligence of your spine. Let us now follow the spine through time, tracing how it became not just a structure but a storyteller, carving the shape of life from the shadows of the sea. In every curve of a whale's back, in every twist of a monkey's tail, in every reach of a human hand, the spine writes its legacy silently. It is not loud, it does not demand attention, but it is always there, flexing, balancing, carrying memory and emotion from one age to the next. After early fish formed vertebrae to stabilize their swimming, life took bolder steps. Some of those ancient swimmers began crawling from shallow waters, breathing air, resting on muddy riverbanks. And when they rose, awkward, gasping eyes blinking into sunlight, the spine rose with them. No longer floating, it now bore weight. No longer passive, it now supported structure. It became the bridge between limb and intention, a living column that would be tested again and again as creatures adapted to new worlds. As amphibians evolved into reptiles and reptiles into mammals, the spine diversified. It grew longer, more segmented, more specialized. Necks lengthened, allowing heads to swivel. Backs became arched or straight, depending on whether a creature climbed, crawled, ran, or flew. Some evolved tails for balance, others lost them altogether. But all of them retained the central truth. The spine was the axis of life. Even inside the spine, deeper than the bone, something else was forming, a secret river of nerves, wrapped in protective membranes, pulsing with electrical life. The spinal cord is not just a pathway, it is a relay of reflexes, a place where sensation becomes response. It connects the brain to the body, translating thought into action, hunger into reach, fear into flight. And it does so with astonishing speed. A single touch, a single flick of pressure on the skin sends signals up the spine in milliseconds. Decisions are made before awareness arrives. The body moves before the mind knows why. This intelligence, fast, quiet, instinctive, is part of our inheritance. It allowed prey to flee and predators to strike. It let the first land creatures feel the ground beneath them, sense heat or cold, tension or touch. And today, it still guides us. A stumble corrected, a balance regained, a shiver down the back. All of it happens in the long hallway of the spine. In mammals, the spine adapted again. Four-legged movement placed different demands on structure. The spine became both bridge and spring, absorbing impact, allowing flexibility, storing and releasing energy. Watch a cheetah run, its spine extending and contracting like a bowstring. Watch a monkey swing from trees, each vertebra shifting with grace. The spine did not limit these creatures, it liberated them. And then came us, humans, the upright walkers. To stand on two legs required another transformation. The pelvis tilted, the lumbar curve deepened, The muscles along the spine thickened to hold the trunk vertical. The head balanced delicately atop the cervical vertebrae, like a globe resting on a tower. It was a new way of being, risky, complex, but full of potential. Upright posture freed our hands. It changed how we saw the world, how we moved through it. It made tools possible. It made language possible. It made thought rise taller. But this new posture also brought new challenges. Gravity, once an ally in swimming, became a force to resist. Our spines compressed. Discs wore down. Pain became a cost of progress. And yet the body adapted. Muscles coordinated with bone. Movement became refined. We walked. We danced. We built entire civilizations balanced on vertebrae. Still, the spine remembers where it came from. The vertebrae remain segmented, echoing the fish's flexibility. The fluid that bathes the spinal cord still resembles the sea. Our reflexes remain fast, ancient, tuned to survival in ways the thinking brain cannot always explain. The spine has never forgotten the water. It has simply learned to carry it differently. Look closely, and you'll see its imprint in every motion, in the way a child arches during a yawn, in the way we curl into sleep, fetal and floating, in the way pain sometimes grips the lower back as if reminding us that this vertical posture is still new, still evolving. The spine is a storyteller, but it is also a reminder that we are experiments in movement, balancing millions of years on 33 bones stacked like stones in a tower. In whales, this tower became a wave. Their spines undulate, sweeping side to side, translating power from head to tail. When they dive, their vertebrae ripple like ribbon. When they breach, the spine curves like a question mark flung into the air. Though they once walked, their spines have returned to their first role, fluid, floating, full of rhythm. And in each of us, that rhythm lingers. The way we sway when we walk, the way we stretch when waking, the pleasure of a twist, the relief of a bend. These are not habits, they are inheritance. Movements passed down not by teaching but by tissue. Patterns written not in words but in joints and ligaments and bone. We tend to overlook the spine. We see the limbs, the face, the features. But it is the spine that allows all of them to move, to reach, to express. It is the foundation, the support, the silent witness to everything we do, and it does not ask for credit. It simply continues vertebra by vertebra, carrying the body forward. In meditation, some traditions speak of energy rising through the spine, life force flowing like water from the base to the crown. Whether literal or metaphorical, the image resonates. The spine is our conduit, our pillar, our ancient channel of motion and meaning. And though we live above the sea now, surrounded by land and sky, the ocean still moves in us, steadily, silently, through this long curved spine that once learned how to swim. Now let us follow the spine into stillness, the quiet moment when motion rests, but memory continues. Because the spine, even when unmoving, remembers a movement. It carries the shape of our lives in its curves, the history of species in its form, and the echo of the sea in its fluid core. When we sit, or lie down, or breathe deeply, the spine is not dormant. It is listening, adjusting, holding us together with a patience as old as the ocean. The vertebral column may seem simple, just bones stacked in a line, but it is alive with nuance. Each bone is slightly different, sculpted by the purpose it serves. The cervical vertebrae in your neck are light and flexible, designed for balance and turning. The thoracic vertebrae connect to ribs, forming the protective cage that guards your heart and lungs. The lumbar vertebrae are broad and strong, bearing the weight of your torso. And below, the sacrum and coccyx, fused remnants of tails we once had, anchor us to something deeper. They are not useless, they are not forgotten. They are fossils that still live. Within the spine runs the spinal cord, and around it flows cerebrospinal fluid, clear and salty, cushioning each impulse. This fluid is not just protection. It is a carrier of nutrients, a regulator of pressure, a medium of communication. It flows in rhythm with your heartbeat, in subtle waves, as if the ocean itself is still speaking within you. The spine is not solid. It is dynamic. It swells. It pulses. It breathes in its own way. When we speak of alignment or posture, we are often speaking of this subtle balance, of bones and muscles and breath finding harmony. Good posture is not just straightness, it is ease, it is fluidity. It is the body returning to the shape it evolved to hold. Not rigid but responsive, not stiff but aware. A well-aligned spine does not strain. It supports with grace as water supports a swimmer, as wind supports a bird. And when it breaks, through trauma, through time, through disease, we feel the rupture not only in the body but in the self. The spine is central. Its injury affects everything. Walking, speaking, breathing, even of feeling. It is a reminder that this column of bone is not a background structure. It is the axis of identity. Damage to the spinal cord alters the conversation between brain and body, between thought and movement, between intention and possibility. Yet even here the body seeks adaptation. New pathways, new methods, neuroplasticity reaching across the break, trying to bridge what was lost. In this, there is both fragility and resilience. The spine can be bent, broken, healed, strengthened. It can carry burdens. It can be trained to dance. It can ache. It can sing. And in all of this, it stays rooted in evolution. In the quiet work of millions of years shaping form to match environment, ability to match need. Even our emotions find echo in the spine. Stress rounds the shoulders, stiffens the neck. Fear curls us inward. Relief softens the back. Joy lifts the chest. The spine responds to feeling not as a metaphor but as a lived reality. It is where we hold what we cannot say, where we brace for what we cannot avoid, where we release what we no longer need. This connection between spine and feeling is deeply embedded in human cultures. In language, we speak of backbone as courage, of being spineless as weakness. We tell stories of standing tall, of feeling broken. These are not just figures of speech. They are truths the body understands. The spine is more than support. It is identity. It is story. And what of sleep? What of the long hours when consciousness dims and the body rests? Even then, the spine works. It shifts. It repairs. It dreams in its own way, realigning muscles, releasing tension, returning to center. Sleeping posture matters. Movement during rest matters. Because the spine, though still, is never idle. It is always listening to gravity, always in quiet dialogue with the bed, the breath, the beating of the heart. And in yoga, the spine is often seen as a channel for energy, the Sushumna Nadi, through which the life force moves. Ancient traditions spoke of chakras aligned along the spine, centers of awareness and transformation. Whether one sees these as literal or symbolic, the idea resonates. The spine is where change happens, where growth climbs upward, where awakening rises, and even in death the spine remains. Long after muscles dissolve and memories fade, the vertebral column persists. Fossilized, it tells stories to those who will never hear the voice it once carried. From a single vertebra, paleontologists can infer posture, gait, lifestyle. They can imagine the creature's movement, its habitat, even its relatives. The spine becomes a message across time, speaking not in words but in angles, in density, in form. When we look at the fossils of ancient whales, creatures that once walked and then returned to the sea, we see this message clearly. Their vertebrae changed shape as their limbs shrank and their tails grew strong. Their spines curved differently, adapted to swimming, and yet the old structures remained, partially buried, partially used, like notes from an earlier song still woven into the new melody. Evolution doesn't erase, it rewrites. The spine is its pen. So as you sit here now, upright or reclined, still or in motion, consider what carries you. Not just muscles, not just willpower, but a long, flexible bridge made of sea and time, a story told in calcium and collagen, a shape sculpted by tides, by walking, by weight. You are not just a being with a spine, you are a creature written by it. Every gesture you make is an echo, every breath is a continuation, and when you stretch at the end of the day, when your back arches gently and you feel something deep within unwind, know that this is not just relief, it is remembrance. Your spine, loyal and quiet, is telling you again, you came from the sea, you carried it with you, you changed and you endured, you still do. So rest and let your spine speak. Let it move, let it hold, let it return to the rhythm it has always known. A rhythm made of water and earth, of fish and trees, of falling and rising and falling again. The spine does not forget, and because of it, neither do you. In the vast cathedral of the ocean where light fades and pressure builds, where the silence seems complete, whales speak. They do not need air to carry their voices, nor do they rely on wind to spread their words. Instead, they use something far older, far deeper. They speak through water, through vibration, through the very bones of their bodies. Where we might shout or whisper through air, they hum through their skeletons, send pulses into the sea, and feel the world answer. These are songs without air, but not without meaning. They are messages built from the movement of sound through flesh and fluid. Unlike humans who use tongues and lips to shape sound into language, whales have evolved something different. Their voices begin deep inside in specialized organs near their nasal passages. In toothed whales, the sound originates in the phonic lips, structures that slap together rapidly, creating bursts of sound. These vibrations then pass through the melon, a fatty organ on the forehead that focuses and directs the sound like a natural lens. It's a biological sonar, but also something more. A song, a pulse, a beacon, a question launched into darkness. And the reply does not come to the ears in the way we might expect. Instead of depending solely on external hearing, whales receive sound through their bones. Vibrations pass through the jaw, through the skull, directly into the middle ear. The lower jaw, wide and hollow, is filled with fats that conduct sound with extraordinary efficiency. This is bone conduction, sound bypassing the eardrum entirely, reaching the inner ear through touch, not air. The whale hears with its skeleton. It feels as its world. In this way, communication for whales is both internal and external. They not only send signals outward, they absorb them inward. The ocean becomes a resonating chamber, every movement, every sound travelling farther and deeper than it ever could now. Some low-frequency whale calls can cross entire ocean basins, travelling thousands of kilometres without fading. They bend around islands, they slide through thermal layers, they reach whales who are too far to see, too distant to touch, but not too far to feel. Imagine for a moment a voice so powerful it could be heard from one continent to another. Imagine that voice not rising into the sky, but sinking into the earth, curling around the curvature of the planet, echoing softly, steadily, always. This is not imagination for whales, this is reality. Their low rumbles are not noise, they are coordinates, identity, belonging. In the case of blue whales, the loudest animal on Earth, their calls can register at 28 decibels, louder than a jet engine. But these calls do not hurt the ocean. The water holds them gently, spreading them out, carrying their message without distortion. To other blue whales, these sounds are not overwhelming. They are familiar, they are comforting. They say, "I am here, you're not alone." And yet these songs are not always loud. Many whales communicate in frequencies too high or too soft for humans to detect without instruments. Dolphins use whistles and burst-pulsed sounds. Narwhals murmur and click beneath Arctic ice. Beaked whales, some of the most elusive animals alive, whisper with such subtlety that entire species went unheard for decades. These are not quiet creatures, but careful ones, sensitive to the acoustic tapestry of their world. They must be, because in the deep sea sound is everything. It is sight, it is distance, it is companionship. In complete darkness, with no visual cues, a single pulse of sound can describe the world. A short series of clicks might outline the shape of a canyon. A rising whistle might guide a calf back to its mother. A rhythmic coda might signal the presence of a clan member. These signals are not accidental. They are specific, deliberate, repeated across generations. And still, even this physical, vibrational communication holds emotional weight. A mother whale sings to her calf not just to guide, but to comfort. Her low moans wrap around the baby's body like arms in the water. The calf doesn't just hear them, it feels them resonating through its bones. In that moment, the water becomes a cradle, the sound becomes love. We often forget that communication is not only about information, it is about connection. Whales, in their oceanic world, have developed a way to connect that transcends distance, that ignores barriers. A call sent into the blue does not need a reply to be complete. It is presence made audible. It is existence broadcast into a liquid sky. And in this realm, the boundaries blur. To communicate is to navigate. To listen is to perceive. A whale moving through the sea is constantly absorbing messages, echoes off the seafloor, the thrum of far-off companions, the click of a distant pod. Its brain processes all of it, building a three-dimensional world out of pressure and vibration. And its body, built to both speak and hear, becomes the perfect instrument. An instrument designed not to play solos, but to join a great unseen chorus. This way of living, of knowing the world through vibration, touches something primal. Even in humans, bone conduction plays a role in how we hear our own voices. That deeper sound you hear when you speak aloud to yourself is your skull vibrating. When you place your head against a wall and tap, you feel the sound more than you hear it. When a train approaches, you sense it in your feet before your ears. These are remnants, traces of a time when vibration was everything. And perhaps this is why we find whale songs so moving, even when we don't understand it. Our bodies remember what our minds have forgotten. We too once lived in a world where water carried sound faster than thought, where bones were the first instruments, and resonance the first language. We hear whales sing, and something in us stirs, not in the intellect, but in the chest, in the spine, in the skin. This is not nostalgia. It is recognition. A deep bodily yes, rising from a place older than words. A place where sound does not need interpretation, only presence. A place where to sing is to exist and to feel is to understand. Let us follow these invisible waves now, these bone-born songs, as they ripple through the sea like veins through a body. In this realm of liquid sound, whales do not merely send messages, they shape space. Each pulse sent through the water bends the world around it. Each click, each buzz, is not just a call, it's a touch, a way of reaching out without reaching at all. Imagine shaping your world with sound, not just speaking into it but sculpting it, knowing exactly where something is, how fast it moves, even how it feels, all without needing to see. For whales, this sense is not mystical, it is natural. Where we rely on light bouncing off surfaces to reveal detail, whales rely on pressure waves, returning echoes, and subtle shifts in resonance. These are read not by eyes, but by specialized tissues that transmit vibration directly to the inner ear. This means they do not just hear what is around them, they feel it. The world becomes tactile, mapped not by texture but by tempo. Each beat of another whale's heart, each flick of a fin, each breath that breaks the surface. It is all there, alive in the ocean's echo. This type of perception has a name, somatosensory acoustics. It means the body listens. And for whales, the body is an instrument finely tuned to the water's voice. Some whales can detect infrasonic frequencies, sounds so low we cannot hear them, sounds that pass through the very bones of the earth. Others, like dolphins, use ultrasonic frequencies, sharp and fine like a chisel, carving out intricate detail in the dark. Each species has its range, its palette, its method of composing reality through sound. It is no surprise then that the inner ear of a whale is encased in dense bone, evolved to shield and transmit subtle vibrations. The auditory bulla, a thickened part of the skull, sits like a sealed vault around the inner ear. It is a chamber of deep listening, isolated from the noise of the body, designed to pick up the faintest echoes from leagues away. To a whale, the ocean is never quiet. It is full of signals, some faint, some urgent, some ancient, and these signals carry more than direction. They carry identity. In orcas, every pod has a distinct dialect, made up of whistles, calls, and clicks that are as recognizable to them as a name is to us. Mothers teach their calves these sounds. Over time, the young whales learn to modify them slightly, like adding their signature. Some scientists believe these dialects are not just for orientation, but for culture, for passing knowledge, maintaining group cohesion, even marking lineage. In sperm whales, the use of codas, click patterns that sound like rhythmic percussion, is even more mysterious. These codas are consistent within groups but differ between them, and they are used not only in greetings, but possibly in rituals. Observations of social gatherings between clans suggest that these vocalizations are part of deep, meaningful interactions. Like drums across a canyon, they create rhythm where words cannot go, and in belugas, the so-called canaries of the sea, the sounds multiply. They squeak, chirp, whistle, and mimic. Some belugas have even been recorded imitating human speech rhythms. It's not that they understand our language, it's that their capacity for sound is so vast, so nuanced, that mimicry becomes natural. It is as if they do not just speak, but play, as if sound itself is their environment, their canvas, their companion. In this context, silence is not absence, it is choice. Whales can choose to be quiet, to travel silently through deep channels, leaving no signature behind. Mothers with calves often reduce their vocalizations, knowing that predators may be listening. They rely on proximity, on touch, on short-range pulses that don't carry far. This silence is protective. It is wisdom learned over generations. It is a lullaby sung in whisper, close enough only for a baby to feel. When the ocean is too noisy, filled with the ship traffic, seismic surveys, underwater drilling, this quiet becomes harder. The signals are lost in the chaos. Calls are masked. Responses are missed. What was once a clear world becomes crowded, cluttered, and whales must adapt again. Some raise the volume of their calls, others change their frequency. But adaptation has limits. The ocean is vast, but it is not empty. And too much noise can turn it into a place of confusion. Yet still they try. They keep singing. Because for whales, communication is survival. It is navigation. It is parenting. It is reunion. And in many ways it is art. Their calls are not flat. They rise, dip, twist. They carry rhythm. Some humpback songs follow structures like musical compositions with themes and motifs that develop over time. They are performed in sequence, repeated, modified. They are shared across populations and altered with the seasons. No one knows exactly why. Maybe they are about mating, maybe they are about emotion, maybe simply they are about being heard. And here we see something extraordinary. That sound, even without words, can carry meaning. That vibration alone can carry memory. That feeling something move through your bones is enough to remind you that you are alive, and that someone else is too. In the deep, where no eyes can see, a song without air moves through water. It leaves no trail, it needs no witness, but it arrives, it always arrives. It wraps itself around the listener, travels through their body, resonates within their chest, and that resonance, that shared wave, becomes connection. We too are made for this. Our own bones conduct sound, our own hearts beat in rhythms, our own speech is vibration pressed into air. When we speak, we do not just send words, we send presence. And when we listen, truly listen, we do so not just with ears, but with our whole being. So when a whale sings in the dark and the note travels miles before finding another, what we're witnessing is not just biology, it is belief. Belief that someone is there, that the signal will be felt, that the vibration will become a shared experience, however brief. In that moment, communication becomes communion, and the ocean, for all its vastness, becomes small enough to hold a song. Now let us follow this final current, slow and steady, as we arrive at the quiet heart of the story, where the songs of whales become more than sound, more than science, more than signals. In the deepest parts of the ocean, where no light reaches and the pressure is enough to fold steel, there are still voices, there are still songs. They do not need air to rise, they do not need lyrics to be understood. They are felt, they are shared, they are remembered in the water, in the body, in the space between presence and absence. What makes these songs endure is not just their volume or clarity, but their persistence. Whales have been singing for millions of years, longer than birds, longer than humans. Before there were written languages, before there were alphabets, there were these low humming calls. They echoed through primeval oceans, bouncing off volcanic ridges, weaving through coral labyrinths, reaching ears that had never seen the sky. The ocean carried them faithfully, like breath moving through a flute, and every whale that answered did so not just as a voice, but as a continuation. This continuity is sacred. It means that when a modern whale sings, it is not only expressing its own voice, it is singing alongside echoes of its ancestors. The melody may shift, the rhythm may evolve, but the impulse remains the same: to reach, to be known, to join. Every song sent into the sea is also a kind of question. Are you there? And when another voice answers, are you too? It becomes a thread, a connection drawn across the expanse, and sometimes no answer comes. Sometimes the sea holds its breath. The sound goes out and nothing returns. But the whale sings again anyway, not because of certainty, but because of faith. Because in the deep, where everything is distant, the act of singing is itself an act of hope. It says, even if I am alone now, I may not always be. Even if I cannot see you, I believe you can feel me. There is something profoundly human about this, though it is not ours alone. We too speak into the dark. We too call across space and time, a letter sent to a stranger, a song sung for the stars, a memory whispered into the night. These are our versions of echolocation, our way of feeling for the outlines of the world, of others, of ourselves. And when something echoes back, when we are heard, we recognize something ancient in the response. The idea that whales communicate through bone is not just a detail of anatomy. It is a metaphor of depth. Their hearing is internal, vibrational, embodied. It is not about separating sound from silence. It is about feeling the difference. Their world is not made of lines or labels. It is made of resonance, the way the body hums when touched by the right frequency. The way a message becomes more than information. It becomes sensation. And isn't that what all true communication longs for? Not just to be decoded, but to be felt. Not just to be understood, but to be carried. When a whale sends a call across 1,000 miles, it does not know who will receive it, but it sends it anyway, trusting the sea, trusting the connection, trusting the physics of sound and the biology of listening, and the ancient memory that says, this has worked before, it may work again. Even as the modern world grows louder, even as ships crisscross migratory paths and engines rumble through once quiet channels, the whales keep singing. Not out of ignorance, but resilience. They raise their voices, they adjust their frequencies, they find new routes, but the song, the desire to connect, never fades. And in the places where silence returns, where the waters calm and the noise retreats, the song returns too, like a forest regrowing after fire, like birds returning after the storm. It rises softly at first, then stronger, then shared, a chorus in the deep, not to fill the silence, but to honour it. These songs are not static, they change. A whale might sing a new phrase one season, and by the next, whales half a world away are echoing it. A single voice becomes a movement. A pattern becomes culture. It is one of the only known examples of cultural transmission outside of human language. And it does not require writing or memory or instruction. It requires only listening and imitation and time. So what are whales really saying? Are they describing their world, sharing emotion, naming each other? We don't yet know. Maybe we never will. But perhaps it is enough to know that they are saying something, that the ocean is not silent, that it is full of thought and memory and feeling passing between creatures who have learned to speak through water and bone. And perhaps that is the lesson they offer, not in words but in waves, that to be heard is to be touched, that to listen is to join, that even without air, without eye contact, without speech as we know it, we can still be understood. Because the truth is, sound does not begin in the mouth. It begins in the need to reach another. And the most powerful songs are not always the loudest. They are the ones that vibrate through us, leaving us changed. So when you think of whales, think of more than their size or their shape. Think of the way they feel the world. Think of how they speak without breath, listen without ears, and sing not for applause but for communion. Think of their skeletons, living tuning forks in a cathedral of salt, carrying messages not across walls but through water. And then ask yourself, what do I send into the world, hoping someone will feel it? What vibrations do I carry, even in silence? Because the whale teaches us not just how to listen, but how to speak with more than words. And somewhere out there in the long quiet of the sea, a note is still travelling, bone-born, slow, steady, true. It does not need to be heard to matter. It does not need to be answered to be worth singing. It only needs to move, to be felt, to be real, like all the best songs, deep beneath the waves, where sunlight never lingers and the pressure folds time into stillness. Something thoughtful moves. It glides without rush, blinks slowly, and carries in its silence more memory than we can grasp. This is not a creature of impulse. It is not new. It is not lost. It is a whale, and inside its mind lives the memory of the abyss, of currents older than language, of migrations older than maps, of kinship that stretches across oceans like a song with no beginning and no end. Whales are not only large in size, they are vast in presence. Their brains, some of the largest on Earth, are not swollen with noise but woven with quiet. Folded deep within those neural landscapes are connections that speak not just of survival, but of something else, of learning, of sharing, of emotion. Cetaceans, the family that includes whales, dolphins, and porpoises, are more than biological wonders. They are ancient minds, shaped by the sea, moulded by memory. To understand their intelligence, we must first set aside our own definition of it. Intelligence for humans often means tools, words, logic, invention. But in the ocean, where hands are fins and writing dissolves, intelligence takes other forms. It is fluid, intuitive, lived rather than listed. It is in the way a mother teaches her calf to breathe, in the way pods coordinate hunts with military precision, in the way orcas invent new techniques to catch seals, or how dolphins use coral as gloves to protect their snouts. These are not instincts. These are inherited solutions, passed through observation and play. Some dolphin pods used sponges as tools, tucking them onto their beaks to forage in rocky seabeds without injury. This behaviour is not universal. It is cultural, taught from mother to daughter. In other regions, dolphins herd fish into the tight balls or use bubbles to confuse prey. These behaviours are localised, specialised, taught, like crafts in a village, like dialects in a language. Memory here is not just in the body, it is in the group, in the passing of knowledge from one generation to the next, and the architecture of their brain supports this. A cetacean brain is not just large, it is sophisticated. The neocortex, involved in problem-solving and self-awareness, is expansive. The limbic system, tied to emotion, is deeply developed. Some scientists believe whales may experience emotions with greater nuance than we do. Grief, joy, empathy, even awe, observations of whales mourning their dead, carrying deceased calves for days, refusing to let go, suggest a capacity for feeling that defies our usual categories. They live in social groups that are not random but chosen. Alliances form, friendships last decades. Dolphins call each other by name, distinct signature whistles used like greetings. Some whales travel in matrilineal lines, their movements guided by the memory of grandmothers. The oldest females lead, not because they are dominant, but because they remember where to feed, when to move, how to survive. This transfer of memory is not written. It is lived, and it is sacred. Even their songs are vessels of intelligence. When a humpback whale sings, it does so in structured patterns, repeated and refined. The song changes each season, evolving in complexity. Young males learn by mimicking others, adding their own notes. The song spread across oceans, not unlike fashion or folklore. This is not random noise. This is creative expression, a sign of minds tuned not only to function, but to beauty. And yet they are quiet about it. There are no temples in the sea, no books, no machines. Their intelligence is not built upward, but outward, into relationships, into movement, into sound. They do not shape the world with tools, they shape it with presence, with shared memory, with deep, ongoing attention. In recent studies, captive dolphins have been shown to recognize themselves in mirrors, a rare trait shared only by a few animals, including great apes, elephants, and magpies. This self-awareness suggests an ability to perceive not just the world, but the self within it. And in the wild, dolphins play. They ride waves, toss seaweed to each other, blow bubble rings and chase them for fun. This play is not just energy release, it is creativity. It is curiosity. It is the signature of minds that explore not just to survive, but to feel alive. But perhaps the deepest intelligence of cetaceans lies in their patience, in their willingness to listen, in their comfort with silence. Whales can go long stretches without speaking. They travel in silence, listening for distant songs, choosing not to fill the water with unnecessary sound. This restraint is wisdom. It is consideration. It is knowing when to speak and when to simply be. And when they do speak, when a pod of orcas erupts into clicks and whistles, or when a blue whale's moan rolls through the sea, it is not random. It is coordinated, targeted, intentional. They speak to one another across vast spaces, sending messages that take minutes to arrive, trusting that they will be heard. This is not instinct. This is memory in motion. We often wonder what whales think. Do they reflect? Do they imagine? Do they dream? We cannot know for sure, but when you watch them surface slow and sure, when you see a calf roll in its mother's wake, or a dolphin leap for no reason other than joy, Something deep inside you feels familiar. These are not strangers. They're not others. They are mirrors made of flesh and salt and sound. And maybe that is what their intelligence teaches us. Not just that they know, but that knowing can take many forms. That intelligence is not louder or faster or sharper. It is sometimes quieter, deeper, older. Something that swims beneath the surface and carries the whole ocean with it. So when you imagine a whale next time, do not see only the bulk, the breath, the breach. See the mind behind the movement. See the memory folded in the fluke. See the song, invisible but present, rising through water like a thought half remembered. See the intelligence that does not build cities, but builds connection, that does not shape stone, but shapes feeling, that does not conquer, but continues. Let's drift deeper into this intelligence now, not in search of answers, but to feel its weight. Because cetacean intelligence is not made for spectacle. It is not a performance for human understanding. It is quiet, internal, continuous. It lives not in experiments or tricks, but in relationships, in silence, in the long unfolding of time. A dolphin does not solve a puzzle to please us. A whale does not sing to be decoded. They do these things because they are who they are, because thought, feeling, memory, and culture ripple through them like currents in the sea. To watch whales in the wild is to witness minds that carry more than the moment. A female orca leading her pod knows which fjords freeze early, which bays warm fastest, which routes lead to herring. She did not learn this in a book or a broadcast. She learned it by being there, again and again, year after year, memory layering like sediment into stone. Her brain, shaped by generations of ice and fish and birth and loss, becomes a map, living archive. She doesn't remember facts, she remembers places. She remembers when the world changed and how her pod survived it. And memory does more than guide, it binds. Orcas live in pods built on kinship and familiarity. Calves stay with their mothers for life. Family groups vocalize in specific dialects, unique to their lineage, rich with inherited nuance. These dialects are not learned in isolation. They are sung in childhood, mimicked in adolescence, echoed in adulthood. They carry jokes, warnings, affection. To be fluent in a dialect is to belong, but the most striking part of cetacean memory is not just what they remember, it's how they carry it. With grace, without haste. There is no frantic hoarding of facts, no visible pressure to be clever. Their minds move slowly, deliberately, like their bodies through the sea. And yet when needed, they act with precision. They can coordinate hunts, anticipate danger, and teach skills across generations. Their intelligence is not in the reaction, it's in the readiness, the long preparation beneath every action. And it's not only in orcas or dolphins. Belugas too live in matrilineal groups. Their migrations trace ancestral routes through narrow Arctic passages. They rely on memory to navigate the shifting ice. They return to the same estuaries year after year to molt, feed, to give birth. These choices are not random. They are inherited. A calf born under northern stars carries the shadow of its mother's root, and her mother's before that. These whales carry history not in writing, but in motion. Some sperm whales travel in clans, communities larger than pods united by shared vocal traditions. Within each clan, individuals may never meet, but they share a code, a rhythm, a song. This suggests not only memory but collective identity, a concept of us that extends beyond the individual, beyond the moment. It is intelligence braided into culture. We often define intelligence by tools and technology, but whales remind us that memory is a tool, that emotion is a system, that knowing your place in a group or a lineage or an ocean is as sophisticated as any invention. Their wisdom is not measured in artifacts, but in adaptation, not in what they make, but in what they maintain. Consider the story of a humpback whale intervening in a killer whale hunt, not once, but repeatedly. These interspecies rescues have been documented across the globe, humpbacks chasing off orcas, protecting seals or grey whale calves. No benefit, no clear evolutionary incentive. Some call it altruism, others call it empathy. But perhaps it is memory, a memory of danger, a memory of loss, a memory strong enough to move them toward protection rather than retreat. This ability to act across species lines, to feel compelled to intervene, suggests a moral sensitivity that is rare in the animal kingdom. It is not mechanical, It is mindful, a choice made from knowing, not from need. And though we cannot interview the whale, we can witness the behaviour and feel its meaning. Whales and dolphins also mourn. When a baby dies, the mother may carry the body for days, sometimes weeks. She circles the body, touches it, stays near. Other whales do too. This is not just habit. This is grieving. Holding on because letting go is too much too soon. Memory becomes presence. The bond becomes ritual. This mourning may not look like ours, but it feels familiar. It feels like love stretched beyond life. And what of their play? Dolphins leap, chase and spin not only for survival but for joy. They surf bow waves. They pass seaweed back and forth like toys. They invent games. This kind of play is not just juvenile, it is generative. It teaches coordination, builds bonds and rehearses ideas. It is practice in the safest form, and it is rooted in awareness, in imagination, in the ability to explore what might be, not just what is. Perhaps the most profound evidence of cetacean intelligence is not what they do, but how they do it. They do not shout, they do not rush, they move through their world with an ease we might call wisdom. They are not driven to expand, to dominate, to change the sea. They fit into it. They understand its patterns and adapt without force. Their intelligence is not about conquest, it is about harmony. And this too is memory, to live gently in an ancient world, to respect the rhythms of tide and season, to remember the cost of disruption and choose, again and again, the path of balance. It is not instinct, it is insight, and it has allowed them to endure not for centuries but for millions of years. But somewhere someone hears it, and everything changes.